if you could just keep an eye on if Fran shows up.
Someone just came into the, someone just came into the, oh, it's Don. I'm gonna let him in.
Okay. And you turn on the record button.
I did.
Calling the meeting to order at 7:01. I will read what Rob has been reading for the last 25 years, it seems. Pursuant to MGLC 30A, Section 20B, and Chapter 20 of the Act of 2021, permitting public bodies to conduct meetings remotely, the committee will meet virtually utilizing the Zoom platform. All votes will be taken by a roll call vote. And this meeting is being recorded. So let's do a call to order and roll call. Gina Stino.
Present.
Mike Barkley.
Present.
Ooh, Fran Collins. Try one more time. Okay, we got you. Patrick Kennedy,
Here.
Mark Magi,
Here.
and Mary McGoldrick is here. Rob Hillman is in Dublin. Meg Wheeler is doing people's taxes. Alrighty, so Chris, I think you're up because the first order of business is to review the special town meeting warrant articles. As you take us through these, we'll decide whether things are ready to vote a recommendation on or not. And did everybody get a copy of, it would have come through Tracy's email that she sent of the warrant? If not, Chris can forward that along.
Yeah, there was we updated it with a couple of new line items in Article 4 this afternoon. So
Oh, that we probably don't have. Because
Oh yeah, I have the one from yesterday. Not
yeah, the one Tracy sent out was 8:30 last night. So
do you have the one from? Do you have the one from today, Mary? Because it went out.
Oh.
It went out at like.
No. So if you could put that up on the screen when we get to that.
I will do that, but let
Okay.
me also just forward it to everyone.
Is that the only change to what we got yesterday, Chris?
Yeah, just a couple of just some tweaks to a couple of the articles.
Okay.
Not the first couple. All right. I know Jean has it and Patrick has it. All right, Fran. Hold on one quick second. I'll be right. Don, are you good to go? I see you hiding. Oh, there you go. All right.
I'm here.
Why is Fran Collins not coming up? All right, so here's what I'll do. The first two articles are not any different. So I'm going to put this up. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. And then just as we start, so tonight is the start. It's a short warrant. The planning board is having a hearing as we speak to go over the zoning articles, the 3 zoning articles. If that goes smoothly tonight, that'll be in front of you in 2 weeks. Even if it doesn't go smoothly tonight, they have another meeting, I think, between now and then to get before you. And then they're going for the select board on the 2nd. There's 3 zoning articles. There are capital budget. We'll have some things to look at, and they're meeting before your next meeting. And hopefully they'll have some recommendations on a couple of small projects. CPC might also get an application. If they do, you'll also hear something before your next meeting. So I think we'll be okay. There might be one other article that the select board may consider on Tuesday that relates to something that's already on the warrant. So at this point, let me share where we are. Can everybody see the, let me blow it up a little bit. Okay. I will, these are amendments. The first warrant article is amendments to the operating budget, and I will pass this to Don for explanation.
Good evening. So the first 3 lines, you can see adjusted debt payments. Essentially what happened is we issued some long-term debt that we've been rolling as bands back in June. So they were all kind of 1-year extensions, and then we went long-term. So the Title V Betterment Fund is where we collect all of the betterment revenue from the Title V betterments. And so this is an annual debt service payment that we will be paying for the next, I believe, 10 years. I'd have to double check the debt schedule, but so that money will come and be built into our forecast, and the funding source is a Title V Betterment Fund. If you remember, we already have a $75,000 funding source from there for prior Title V related debt. The next, the $459,000 relates to capital projects that were funded long-term. These have been factored into capital stabilization's projections. So this is just the funding source, how we do any debt issued from capital. So the money will come from capital stabilization each year as we pay down these bonds. And again, these have been projects that we issued, could have been over the last 2 years. One was has been out there for a number of years related to Bound Brook. So again, we've been carrying estimates in our projections for capital stabilization. So they've been aware, it's been planned. It's just now we have final actual permanent financing schedule to actually pay off each year. So again, same thing, we'll be including this in our annual forecast with the revenue source coming from capital stabilization fund. The next one, 101,000, relates to you remember, I believe it was a special town meeting in 2018. We authorized borrowing for a private road project. And so what happened was we issued debt to pay for this project. It's due over 5 years. And the residents who were part of this program, we allowed them to pay over 10. So we're technically floating this these payments for the next couple of years, and then we'll recoup all of the money over the, I believe it's the next 7 to 9 years as we receive all our betterment payments from them. So that is to pay down the FY22 principal and interest and a remaining amount left on the taxable ban outstanding that will be due come June. And then the fourth item, the transfer to PEG Access. This is accounted for, the revenues from PEG Access. They come in, they're accounted for in a receipts reserve for appropriation account. Mass General Law is one of the functions of how we can account for the revenue that comes in from our Verizon and Comcast agreements that goes right over to Cohasset 143. Years ago, we were able to just receive the money and send it right over once we got it. It had to be 3 or 4 years ago when the state determined that, for better accountability and transparency, these funds were either done as enterprise funds, general fund, or we do it as receipts reserve. So we collect the funds and then we appropriate it at town meeting, which is essentially just transferring any amounts that we've received for that year. And so really at the end of each year, we should be down to a zero balance, because each town meeting, we appropriate whatever balance is in there to fund Cohasset 143 TV. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I can write a few about you on the side. So if you have a question, fire away. Anyone?
Yeah, I got a question. Don, is the Title V Betterment Fund, is that the betterments that Little Harbor residents are paying when we were all charged $39,000 to be able to hook up to town sewer?
No, so
$29,000?
that's the Little Harbor sewer betterments. This is something different. We offer a program for residents who can't afford to hook up to a sewer line. It's a Title V program. I'm not having a great explanation right now off the top of my head, but there's a group that we have residents apply through, and they kind of manage. I think it's the Old Colony Network. Chris might have a better memory on the name, but essentially it's for people that need to hook up. Their septic systems may have failed. They need to either replace their septic system, they don't have the funds to do so, or they need to hook up to the sewer system and don't really have the funds to do so. This program allows us to borrow money to allow them to do so, we hooked them up with the betterment to pay whatever that costed. So if it cost $3,000 for somebody's septic system, they pay that over a 10 or 20 year period and repay the
Okay,
debt.
so that explains it, I think, but when Little Harbor project came into play, we got two bills. We got a betterment from the town that we could finance over time through an increase in tax bills. And there was the Old Colony loan program whereby, because each resident was required to pay for their service from the street all the way to their house, they could borrow the funds through the low interest Old Colony program and pay that back over time through an increase in taxes as well. So I think what you're saying is maybe this is the tax portion, but not associated with it's the hookup fee portion, the loan program, but not for the Little Harbor project?
The Little Harbor betterment would have related to the piping system, the whole sewer system that was put in Little Harbor.
Yeah.
And then there would be a cost associated, I believe, with now then connecting your home to that system.
Right.
And I believe that piece is what would go through the Title V program
Okay.
to also be repaid. Again, I can clarify that for you.
No, I think that's good. That's got to be what it is, and it's such a small number.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, do we want to move on to Article 2?
Do you want
Fran?
to? Do you want a suggestion? Do you want to vote these independently if they're ready to be voted?
We certainly could do that. My only
That's my
slight-
question.
Yeah, my only slight hesitation is, these are fairly straightforward. So does it make sense to do them at our next meeting when Rob is here? But we could certainly vote them this evening.
Well, if I may.
Absolutely.
You could. I'm just if you're comfortable with it tonight, and you're going to be hitting some other major ones. I think the zoning ones are going to get a lot more attention at town meeting floor. You'll be getting those at your next meeting. The select board is scheduled to be Tuesday. If there's things that are non-controversial and you're okay with, would allow the select board to act on them Tuesday and just keep the process moving so everything doesn't get stuck on the second. I mean, it's not that big a warrant. I mean, so that said, if the zoning stuff gets complicated, that could take some time and a meeting. So you have a fairly tight turnaround. If you have reasons that you're totally within your powers to delay and rights, but it might help the process a little bit if something's not controversial and good to go.
All righty. So is it fair to just do a show of hands about who's comfortable taking a vote on this tonight? Okay, so could I have a motion?
Patrick Kennedy moves that the advisory committee recommend Article 1 for the special town meeting.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Fran Collins. And roll call vote, please. Jean Estino? Jean, you're on mute. There we go. Yep.
Sorry. Aye.
All righty. Mike Barclay,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy,
Aye.
Mark Magi,
Aye.
and Mary McGoldrick is an aye as well. Okay. Moving on to Article 2.
Hold on.
All right, so we have two unpaid bills from prior years, or two different vendors that we have bills from prior years. One is Sin Oil. Sin Oil basically disposes of waste oil from our DPW garage. Some of these invoices date back to fiscal 20, December of 2019. We've had some turnover in the admin department over at DPW, so I'm not quite sure how they fell through the cracks. I'm assuming that these could have been emailed to a prior employee that didn't get to the current admin. And then we had a new admin start in June as well. So I don't quite know why these weren't caught or paid, but they're due and they're from a prior year, so we need town meeting authorization to pay these bills. And then sewer, FR Mahoney. I tried, the staff person for sewer was not available today when I was trying to follow up on exactly why these were outstanding. $5,900 relate to pretty much all FY21 bills. Not sure why they weren't accounted for in purchase orders or anything like that. I did notice in some of the correspondence that FR Mahoney, I believe, has been purchased or acquired by another company, and they were going through their accounting system and found these unpaid bills. Again, I don't know why they weren't accounted for, but they're bills that we owe for service calls at the treatment plant. And again, need town meeting approval to be paid.
Jean,
I'm just curious if these bills are for 1 year's service calls or if they span a number of years.
When I looked at them, they were all, I believe, FY21. It's not just a whole year's worth that we didn't pay, because we get FR Mahoney bills that come in somewhat frequently for the sewer department. So how these specific ones weren't flagged or identified ahead of time, I'm hoping to get better information when our staff person is back.
When do you think that might be? I'm just curious. It just seems like $6,000 worth of service calls is a lot of money.
I agree. I mean, realistically, when we make a call, the purchase order should be entered. They should be on top of this. I wish I had a better answer for you, Jean. I know the person's out right now, and I'm not sure when she'll be back in.
just a quick question, Don. Why, so Woodward and Curran doesn't take care of the service?
Go ahead, Chris.
These are for home repairs of grinder pumps.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah. These are for, I went and looked at them myself today. I believe they relate to grinder pumps at specific addresses.
Okay.
Yeah, most of FR Mahoney's work is grinder pump related. You're right.
Okay, so this isn't actually at the sewer plant.
No, it's field work on grinder pumps.
All right, we used to have several of those calls ourselves, so I remember that.
So, and to follow up on Don, I did look at them, there was an email. Apparently, FR Mahoney changed their, again, Don said they were required, they changed their accounting system. It's very possible they've never sent them to us in the first place. I mean, we don't have, and these are all from last year. So normally, if there was something lingering, there's usually a encumbrance, and then we pay them later if they're late. So these, normal, that would normally have been caught. I mean, the ones that Don described before were just weird from, a year ago. And again, there was a transition, and that was all pandemic. These are a little weirder, and I would like to get a tighter explanation because other people kind of ask legitimately. But they're literally for random, service calls during the course of the year for grinder pumps.
Fran, and then I'll take Eugene.
I believe we're trying to privatize all of these grinder pumps. Everybody who has one, they're going to own them and they'll be required to maintain them. How many are still outstanding that the town owns? And this seems to be an awful lot of money to overhaul pumps. An awful lot of pump failures, but.
I believe at this point, all the residents have been released of the town's responsibility of maintaining them. So they're all now on the homeowner.
Right, so this would be a one-time, we won't see anything like this come up again.
No, we shouldn't.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jean, did you have another question?
I did, and this has kind of been answered if homeowners are going to take ownership of the pumps, but I'm just curious also, is this a usual yearly amount, or is it because the grinder pumps are aging that it's more money? I'm just curious how many calls and how much it typically costs to maintain these. And it's just obviously for my information at this point, because it's kind of a moot point.
I can actually answer that question because I had the privilege of paying over $40,000 to buy this system with a perfectly functioning Title V septic system 7 or 8 years ago. And I've had FR Mahoney out to my house several times, and the bills are quite high, and the equipment fails regularly. So
That's
not
what I
only did I get to pay a betterment and pay for all the equipment, I now get to service it and pay FR Mahoney whenever they come out to my house. So I had them here last year. I had them here this year. $1,000 bill is quite commonplace for an hour and a half call. to FR
What sort of failures are you having, Pat?
But I had
Clogs or mechanical failures?
a mechanical failure of the pump, and then I had them out this year with what they originally described as some sort of grease trap issue right in front of the pump, which he repaired for about $600. Did a test and determined that the electrical panel on the box had actually failed. And that was the real problem. And that was a $300 part and another $100 of labor. So it was a $1,000 trip. So anyway.
I'm happy I still have a septic system. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway.
Cheers to that.
But I actually have a question is that the town has owned some of these grinder pumps too, right? When it is connected to town sewer. So the town might have its own service calls and repair trips associated with its grinder pumps. It's not all going to be on all the residents, right?
I'm neither Don or I can answer specifically. I think our buildings are bigger. I don't know that we have grinder pumps on the buildings because the flows that come out of them are so big. The schools, for example, have a whole pump station that manages the flow. I honestly don't know what happens at town hall. Usually they're done for homes because they need to keep it helps manage the flow because no home pressure moves things fast enough to move, so the grinder pumps kind of act to speed the system along and keep it flowing.
Right. Okay.
That's about as far as I go in terms of grinder pumps. I do know, by the way, that they can be temperamental, and the new ones that have been installed hopefully will last a long time, and they are warranted by the company that builds them. So I don't know how long they last. If you really want an answer, I'm happy to have someone available at a future meeting to talk about it. I just either Don, I think you've tapped as much as Don or I can explain about the extent of this.
So Patrick, I'm thinking you should go on water and sewer liaison with Meg. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go to plumbing. I'm going to quit the law business and go to plumbing school.
Patrick, I'd recommend that you buy some of this Robic bacteria that you put down your toilets and your sinks regularly, and that'll take care of all the grease, and that should really take care of lots and lots of problems other than a plain mechanical problem.
Yeah,
This is all bacteria you put in, and eats up all the grease and anything else. And anyway, there you go. There's
all right. Moving on. Moving on. So I'm assuming that there was a TBD item for Amazon, but it's struck from the version you put up there, Chris. Is that gone?
So it appears that Amazon didn't cash over $10,000 worth of checks the town sent them last year, which would account for all of the issue. And they're trying to get, and before we send them any money, they need to clear those and figure out what happened to them. So Michelle Leader's working with them right now to figure out why they didn't cash the checks. So we're not going to. So this is coming off. If it turns out there's something later, we'll deal with it in the spring. It may turn out that we owe them nothing.
Okay.
Right. And it could be just because we have a number of departments that order through Amazon. So depending on how they have it set up, when we pay the bill, like for National Grid, we have to have separate vendors set up for the locations and separate checks cut. So if we had 10 invoices for a month at different locations and departments, we have to cut 10 separate checks to ensure that their accounting department applies them to the correct accounts. So I'm assuming that might be what's happening with Amazon, but like Chris said, until we really get to the bottom of it, it does make sense going through and appropriating money for bills that may have already been paid.
Okay. And it's obviously fine to wait until May if that's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So there's 2 items then of unpaid bills. If people are comfortable voting, could I hear a motion?
I'll move that we approve Article 2 unpaid bills from previous fiscal years.
Second.
Is that a second, Fran?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Mike Barclay,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy,
Aye.
Mark Magi,
Aye.
and Mary McGoldrick is an aye. Okay, two done.
Mary, who moved that?
Petrified.
Mike moved it and Fran seconded. All right, so Article 3, stabilization funds.
So Article 3, stabilization, 350,000 to the OPEB trust. The select board recently adopted an OPEB trust funding policy, which we started at $500,000 annually, increasing 3% per year. So we start off the annual budget with essentially a down payment. I believe this year's was about 180,000 out of the annual town meeting, and then come special town meeting, we catch up and we pay the remaining portion of that funding source. So the 350 is what we've actually been contributing that for the last number of years, even before the policy. But the 350 just makes us whole to get to where we need to be for the funding policy for OPEB for fiscal 22.
Okay. Any questions?
Just real quick, Don, just so this doesn't, the new policy doesn't reflect like a change in any of the assumptions underlying the OPEB liability or how we're discounting that back or anything like that.
No, I'd be happy to talk offline in further detail about how we kind of came up with this. We worked with our actuary to kind of look at it from more of a cash perspective, not how GASB requires us to calculate it. So we have to get into more detail, but we basically went through a whole process and number of meetings to try to come up with a realistic plan to fund this and then have this funded in the near future. So.
Okay. Great. Yeah, no, I'll catch up with you another time to get into the guts of pension accounting. Thanks.
All right, great.
All right, any
Years
other?
and years worth of meetings, to be specific.
Yeah. Mark's had the pleasure of being in all those meetings.
It's a step forward, so.
Any other questions, folks? All right, could we have a motion to recommend Article number 3?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Jean moved, Mark second. I almost said Catherine seconded. Roll call vote. Jean Estino,
Aye.
Mike Barclay,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy,
Aye.
Mark Magi,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick is an aye. Okey doke. Article 4, allocation of funds for one-time costs.
Okay. Don can jump in to correct anything I'm misstating. So the largest allocation of free cash we typically do in a special town meeting is for one-time expenses. It's never good to take money that comes in one time and use it for anything other than something that's one time. There are 3 specific projects that we'll talk about at the end. And there's 2 active committees, one that's very deep in the project and one that's just beginning. So the town hall project, as I think everyone is aware, was funded to go through bid. And one of the challenges that have been placed upon everyone is to find a way to make it as low impact on the expense-wise as possible. And one of the ways to do that is to put money aside to pay it down. And the goal being, the current working goal we have is to try to pay down as at least half. If the approximate cost is 14 to 15, to be able to get about 7.5 million in various places. CPC, the town hall committee at CPC last week to present. They're not voting on anything yet, but they will be in the spring. This is a contribution towards that will go into a dedicated line just for the town hall project. Repurposing some money and using some of the federal money that's floating around to allow the town to reallocate some money and some other steps along the way. So this is one of those steps. This is the first amount would put 750,000 again into to set aside to pay for the project as a which is again probably at this point hearing for town meeting in the spring. Cost estimates come out December, and then we'll be doing bidding right at the meeting. So that would be that's the first one. The second, the school facilities committee has literally just met twice. They had an organizational meeting and they met in September, and I talked to their chair today about their meeting in 2 weeks. We're working on getting a project manager brought on board to help them through this process, which is probably 3 to 5 years. It's a long process. It takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of boxes to check. So that said, there's money available. They're going to need it. They're not going to need all of that right now, but this is a down payment towards that work. This should fund them, I think, easily through the spring. It would allow them to get some professional staff support, and also to begin to do some analysis. The committee, the school facilities committee, has 2 subcommittees: the physical school as they are, and the future, what a future school looks like. So there's a team that's actually going, I think, up to Harvard tomorrow to do an on-site. One of the committee members' firms has actually built a school in Harvard, and I know several of the committee members have gone there just to take a look at it and see what a new building looks like in the 21st century for schools. And I know there's actually work, I believe it's next Tuesday, there's going to be some field work. The committee is getting into some of the buildings to start looking behind the scenes and working with facilities folks. So that they're actually starting a lot of work. So 250, again, the feasibility study could cost more than that. At this point, though, there's not a scope of what that means yet. So this is just to help them start their work. The next 3, so the town, one of the select board's primary goals this year is to get a comprehensive zoning update to the zoning bylaws for the town. That's something that came out of the master plan. It's been talked about by a number of other groups, including the zoning bylaw working group. Unfortunately, the town did not win a grant. We just found out this last week. So it's the $75,000 would help fund that study. We were hoping to match this with a matching $75,000 grant. We did not get that, so we're trying to find some other money available on other places to add to this amount to pay for this hard look at the zoning code, which is what the select board has made a top priority.
Chris, could you speak up a little bit? I'm having an awful hard time hearing you.
Sorry, I don't have my fancy camera. I'm at home, not at work.
Okay.
Let me turn my volume up. Can you hear me any better?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
I just raised my volume. So the cemetery records, we have everything on paper. I was talking to Michelle Leary. They were up there the other day. Our entire cemetery records are on paper. It's the 21st century. We still have lots of graves to sell, and the records have to be brought into the 21st century. We've already done all this work at Town Hall. If you remember, we brought in a company that did a lot of work, got rid of a lot of bad stuff, and brought us to the 21st century, or at least partway to the 21st century. We're still digitizing things. The records for our town cemeteries, there are still 2 active ones up at Beechwood and Woodside, right on the town line with Hingham. We really need to upgrade those records. So this is a payment that will get us the first big step towards that. It's not the end of the project, but it's also the natural outgrowth of the other records work we've been doing around the community, around the government. The last one is I think all of you have seen, the town's population grew. I want to say it was 11% between 2010 and 2020. We're up over 8,300 people. When you reach a quantum of 4, you end up triggering another precinct. So at 4,000, you have less than 4,000, it's 1. Anything over 4, it's 2. Anything over 8, it's 3. So we now have a 3rd precinct. So we need the actual structures for voting booths so people can do their ballots. So this would increase the number of voting booths and upgrade what we have to meet the requirements of a 3rd precinct. So that's what that is for. Are there any questions on any of these items?
Chris, I have a couple questions. So the free cash for Town Hall is not for construction docks that we already allocated.
Yeah, this is for future. This is for the next, this is for potential construction. This is setting aside money in the bank now to pay for something down the road, to allocate this, to lock it up. That's what it's for.
Okay. Okay. And I did listen in on the CPC meeting with Town Hall, and while it was just basically a straw poll, they were in favor by more than a majority. So that was positive. How much in terms of the consulting services for the zoning study? You said $75,000 is essentially just kind of a down payment. How much is that expected to cost?
We were actually meeting with Lauren Lynn, the town planner, just this afternoon. We're trying to find another 50. The goal was to have 150, but I don't have any more money to throw to allocate to this. So we're looking at, if you remember, at town meeting last year, we allocated money for consulting for the whole year. We took it out of the budget and just put it in a separate article. There is money available in that potentially. So I want to circle back with Lauren and then talk to the select board and say, hey, is this, is everyone comfortable with adding this to that money so we have enough to go forward?
Okay. And then finally, where are the cemetery records kept?
At DPW.
Oh, they are. Okay.
They're physical. There's a room. They're physically there.
Wow. Okay.
They need to be digitized. They need to be, by the way, they need to be reorganized and they need to be digitized. So
okay.
It's time.
Any questions from anybody else? Mike?
Yeah, so Chris, I'm looking at the version that we got yesterday, so I'm just trying to square up. Am I right in looking at the new voting booths got moved from capital improvement to one-time costs?
Yeah, it's a small enough number. We have the money. We must just pay cash for it, right? And not that we wouldn't pay cash out of the capital fund, but it's a small enough number that it's something that I think it makes more sense to spend free cash.
Okay, yeah, just want to make sure I'm looking at this right. And then just the Elm Street corridor and field maintenance were taken off.
Yes, so they weren't. So the field study is still ongoing. And that's so in fact, there's been some big movement on that this week. We may need to do some repair work at one of the fields. We're gonna, I think, go to CPC for that, potentially make an application because it's a logical place to go. Yeah. And the Elm Street corridor, that was a holder in case we didn't get the grant. We didn't get that grant either, unfortunately. So we met with Lauren this afternoon. We think we have an alternative source for that as well. So we're circling back on that. That won't need to go to town meeting. So yes, both of those things are still active. We just found alternative ways to fund them, and we're going to use those instead.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Fran?
Now, what is the goal of the school facility study?
To look at the buildings and determine what needs to happen to make them the optimal vehicles for serving the students of the town for the next generation. And that means looking at them, and it's no predetermined outcome. It's it could mean renovations, it could mean reconstruction, it could mean a recommendation for a new school. They're nowhere near any of those recommendations now. They have a lot of work to do. And even if, I don't think it's any secret that there are some members of the school committee that are very gung-ho about a new school building. That said, it's a long way to go to do the assessments. The state makes you go through a lot of hoops to apply for any kind of funding. And you also have to understand what you're doing, right? It's a great to have, I've seen the town hall side firsthand, and that's been going on for quite some time. These are very defined, right? You can walk in that building and you can point out stuff that's literally falling, right? Falling paint. I walked through the other day and there was like paint that was on the floor from the ceiling in the auditorium. We were having Carol's goodbye party. I'm like, okay, don't need the paint chips.
Do we have an anticipated oversupply of students that we may need more space, or are things are pretty static? As I understand, but I may be wrong.
Again, those are good questions, Fran. These are things that the committee has to look at. There's clearly a lot of young families in town, and there's any question about that. Our population in town has not dropped. Some districts have shrunken. You can look at Hull, right? Hull is about almost half our size now, and it used to be bigger than Cohasset. That said, our school system continues to be more robust, and education's changed. The reality is that the needs for, and again, you have two former school committees, and then my Brady Bunch version to my left and my right, who know this firsthand. And again, I don't think there's any predetermined answer yet as to what that means.
All right.
You know, all the,
That Harvard school incidentally had to be built because the school immediately next door to it was riddled with mold and they couldn't take care of it. One of my granddaughters goes to that school, that new school. I went to both of them, as a matter of fact.
I think they're going there because, again, it's new, and it's really just look at what, you know, what a new school looks like and how they design, you know. I mean, one of the things, you know, even with security, right? I mean, you know, unfortunately, the world has changed in a not a good way, right? The security things you've had to do at the schools quietly and publicly is, you know, frightening because you have to, of the security laws. And I know that Gene and Mary were both on the front lines of some of the stuff.
Yep.
You know, bulletproof glass protection and, you know, securities at the gates and the doors. But even the way kids learn, I mean, I was, again, I don't want to get in too deep into this. Things are different. And, you know, the committee's charge is to take a look and figure out what the best answers are. You know, that said, just like the town hall committee, they got to make recommendations. And at the end of the day, town meeting's gonna have to fund, and the voters will have to fund any final result, whatever that may be.
Just,
Yeah.
sorry, Mike, real quick. The school facilities committee is a subcommittee of the school committee. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. They are a
Okay.
entirely standalone separate committee. Their appointments are the moderator appointed 3, the school committee appointed 3, and the select board appointed 3. So they're actually a committee that reports to town meeting under the bylaws.
Okay. So would it be appropriate to ask the school facilities committee to come talk to us at some point about, because it would be nice to have an update on a fairly regular basis about what they've identified as the core issues. How, I mean, much the same as the town hall committees and various iterations have done.
I think it's a great idea. And in fact, the chair, gentleman, Jason Earls, is brand new at this. I would talk with him today. Very gung ho. Paul Schubert is the vice chair and Nan Roth is the secretary of the group. So there's 2 seasoned figures who are, but it's a great group that represents a really nice cross section of the town, and they know they have a lot of work to do. That said, I agree, Mary. Close connection to them was a really good idea.
I just want to be sure we don't have a full-on stampede towards building a new school before we, you know, put the cart before the horse here a little bit.
There's a lot of cart to be built. The cart hasn't even been built yet. So, you know, you can't put it behind the horse. It's not built.
All right, Mike, I'm sorry, I cut you off
Yeah,
earlier.
no worries. I was just going to ask Kristen if it's early in the process. I get it, you know, is part of their mandate, if they haven't already, you know, contacted the Mass School Building Authority. I mean, I know they're touring a new school, but I know also, you know, when you work with the Mass School Building Authority, they have templates, so to speak, of schools that have been built that they've funded that, you know, so I don't know if that's in the works at all either.
That's a good question. So the answer is yes. So I'm actually working with our state rep to get a rep from MSBA at their next meeting, just to do a 101. And that's probably that'll be the first of, I'm sure, many interactions with representatives from SBA. Again, they're literally in the very earliest stages of just even understanding, and to their credit, they're jumping in just to start gathering data. So that I mean, they're not going to Harvard to say we want to build this here. They're going there just to understand what, you know, and again, one of the members, Doug Schultz, who's also on the committee, his company built that school. So it's really just an example to understand what a school looks like and also what they cost. You know, that was actually a comparatively small school, Fran, I think, right? But it weren't cheap. I don't remember the number, but school buildings are very expensive.
Yeah, that's why when you can get 40 or 45% from the MSBA, it always helps.
That's why you gotta go through the checklist, right? If you don't follow their rules, you get nothing. So,
No, I know, and sometimes they give their approvals at off times when you only have a certain window to get the town to then approve it afterwards. So no, it's a Rubik's Cube. I get it, but I'm glad they're engaged. That's good to hear.
All right, and I'll definitely, I'm sure to be reflected in the minutes, but we will, I'm sure talk about this again as one of the committees that we would certainly like to hear from. I'm a little, not leery of studies, but given what happened with the town hall and the amount of studies that we had there, just want to make sure that they have a pretty clear mission and set of objectives. And if they need to report to town meeting, that's terrific. So
I move that we vote on Article 4 to accept it.
Second.
okay, moved by Fran, seconded by Mike. Roll call vote. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Mike Barclay,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy,
Aye.
Mark Magi,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick is an aye. All righty, Article 5, capital improvements projects.
So this is not ready for your review yet. it's just a highlight, just so you know it's coming. As Mike already pointed out to you, one item that was originally in here is actually moved up when you just voted on the voting booths. There's two in here, and there's two. Let me explain them. You'll hear more about them after they go to capital. The first one is replacement of defibrillators. We have a number of defibrillator devices, both in police and fire, and there's also one at DPW that needs to be replaced. If we do it before December 31st, we get $300 credit per unit returning in. So it's going to save us, Don, what is something north of $7,000. So the actual cost of the replacement is actually $38,000. If we do it before the end of the year, we're going to get a credit for each of the units we turn back. If we wait until after January, we don't get that credit. So they were coming anyway. They were going to be heading for the spring. So it's an opportunity to save some money, which is never a bad thing. The other piece, the Elm Street water main is being replaced, and so is the sewer line in Elm Street. And this is actually a piece that bridges what appeared to be a small gap just past the Cohasset Rain when it becomes kind of Margin Street. There's apparently a new line that runs up Atlantic and kind of into Margin, and there's this kind of fills a gap. There was a small piece they hadn't originally planned to do, but they might as well, since one end is new and this will be new. This will be a piece. I don't have the map, but it basically runs kind of along that. You know, when you're heading up Margin, it kind of along with the Cohasset Rain is by that little meadow, and connects to just where the old Roy property. What is it called? Oaken Woods. I forget what. I'm sorry.
The Oaks.
The Oaks. Thank you. Right there. So that's what that 100,000 would cover. And that's coming out of the water department's retained earnings. 30,000 would come out of providing capital stable. The capital budget committee recommends it would come out of the capital stabilization. But again, nothing to vote on tonight. This is just kind of a preview. You'll hopefully see this in the next agenda.
Does anyone have any questions about that?
No.
Article 6.
So the language may change a little bit, but the core of it is stay. So there's a piece of land, and let me that's being offered as a donation to the town. It's owned by a family. Rices, I forget the gentleman. The gentleman died, and he left it to his 4 kids who don't want it and can't use it. So they can donate it, and I guess they can get some of a tax deduction. I have no idea what they're going to do. I have a copy of the map.
Where is it, Chris?
Let me show it to you, Fran.
Oh, that's the piece up that backs up to the outlet to the bridge at Beechwood.
No, not quite. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
So,
Not yet.
so that is off to my right. You see that little that's Stop and Shop. You can see
Oh,
my screen
yeah.
cursor. And that's Whitney Fair Woods, and it's kind of back in the woods, right? And the borders that's actually Wampatuck Park that borders. So I think that you see that squiggly line, that is actually a potential access road, but that's not a buildable lot. There's really nothing they can do to build on that. It actually, if you see all the little stripes all around it, that's all owned by various other entities. Either it's either the water department owns it, or it's the Whitney, the trustees of the reservation own it.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect piece of land that should be preserved. There's really nothing you should be done with it. So
Good.
It's been looked at, and it's that funny little piece that kind of looks like an L, or a triangle, or like a boomerang, I guess.
It's a Red Sox.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's exactly right. You're right, Patrick. That is a Red Sox. That is an honor. That is their official. That's being presented. The select board looked at it, and we couldn't get it onto the warrant in the spring. We didn't have time. And a bunch of groups of conservationists looked at it. DPW's looked at it. It's all fine. There doesn't seem anything wrong with it. The initial checks were like there's no waste on it or anything like that. So this would just the process would be to accept it, and then it becomes conservation. It becomes part of the town's conservation. So
What's the loss of tax revenue if the town accepts it?
It's like $700 a year, or it's nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, we're part of this is we're going to waive it this year, so we can get this done. So yeah, it doesn't have it. It's not a buildable lot. So there's nothing around it that we can connect to anyway. It does have access, but it doesn't have buildability. I guess I can put a tent on it. Maybe. There is a packet. I don't have that for distribution, but that has a little bit more information about it. It is again, the assessed value is comparatively low too. Again, if you want more of an in-depth presentation, I had Paula available, but she's having trouble getting on time. So hold on a second. Let's see if she got back to me. Oh, she's back. So she's been listening to me present. Let me bring her into the room. She's on the phone. So Paula, are you there?
Looks like she's muted, Chris. There we go.
There you go. Are you there? Are you back, Paula? Oh, you were just unmuted. Now you're muted again. Paula? Paula? Can you unmute?
Hello.
Oh, there you go. We were just talking about the rice lot. The perfect timing.
Okay, great.
I was just saying that, we've looked at it. There doesn't seem any objections to it. It doesn't have a very high tax value. I think it was like $700 a year. Is that about right? Something like that.
Let's see. Yep, just under $700. You wouldn't lose those taxes anyhow, Chris, other than partially for the first year they'd be abated. But then what happens is that it doesn't change the tax levy, so it just gets spread out over everything else the following year.
Right. So the towns are not losing anything. And
No, just it would be the first year. If it was accepted like in the next town meeting, you'd abate the rest of the fiscal year, but that would be it. It would be that one shot, and then it would then that tax levy would be spread out against the rest of the town.
And there's no lingering debt on this, right? We checked all that.
No, we checked all that. We had the assessing and building and conservation look at it. Brian looked at it, town engineer looked at it. So there was no real concerns. It's wet. It's not really buildable. It's connected to like Wampatuck State Park, and I think the Water Commission's got some land that abuts it. I did send out in my packet there was a list of abutters. It's like in the middle of nowhere. It's landlocked and wet. So it's not, it's really not worth a whole lot to a whole lot of people, unless you want to, it's for conservation more than anything, I would say. Unless the water is looking, we need it for that, but I don't know if that's going to help much for that area either.
So,
the only thing, we probably should do a title search. I did order one. It hasn't come back yet, just to be doubly sure, but we should know that before town meeting. So we'll have that information before we go for a final vote at town meeting.
and this is a strict donation. They're not asking for any money.
No, they're not asking for anything in return. They want to stop paying the taxes.
Yes. A lot of people
On a
just
piece of
pay the
property.
taxes and they just turn it over to us eventually. That's what happens. So you got to give them credit for that much.
Right.
Nice donation.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Paula?
Thank you, Paula.
Alrighty.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Paula. Thanks.
No problem.
I had to give her the 17-digit phone number to get in here. It's a lot easier just to push the Zoom and click, but when you're trying to call in, it was like.
So it looks like we're not ready to dive into 7, 8, and 9.
So yeah, so 7, 8, and 9 are being heard right now by the Planning Commission. And again, Lauren is going to send me some kind of an emoji to tell me what happened tonight. So we'll see what she sent me. With a smiley face or something more like a skeleton. I don't know. So hopefully that'll go smoothly. And even if it'll go one way or the other. So either 3 articles will be pushed forward, or 2 or 1 or none. But that'll happen. If not this week, they'll have another hearing before your next meeting.
After they go to the planning board, do they need to go to, are they in zoning or do they come from zoning?
No, yeah, this zoning has been monitoring this too, and the zoning bylaw work, these recommendations came out of the zoning bylaw working group. which
Okay.
has a seat on it. The process for changing the zoning bylaw requires the select board to refer, which they did. And the public hearing was going to be last week, but they couldn't make it work, so they're doing it this week. And so this planning board has a public hearing, then they vote to recommend or not. And then it goes back to the select board, through you first, and then to the select board.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that'll be ready for the next meeting. Like I said, with CPC, there might be some baseball, some Milliken Field work that might be asked of the CPC. There's a citizen petition that is not, I'm not, is only going to discuss tonight. There might be another article that might be presented to the select board next week.
Mike?
Yeah, so Mary, I apologize. I just got a text from my daughter that she needs to be picked up from her volleyball game. Do you need me to dial back in on my phone to keep the quorum, or?
No, and we are actually, let's say 1, 2, 3, we're fine. And we've also already done our voting. So
Okay,
there, I mean, other than accepting the minutes, that's, as far as I know, that's the only other thing.
okay. I apologize. Yeah.
Please.
All
Children
right.
first, Mike.
All right, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Talk soon.
Bye-bye. Unfortunately, I don't have my notes from last time in front of me. Can we remind ourselves when our next meeting is?
In 2 weeks.
27th?
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. So that's when we'll have a fuller picture. What's the drop dead date for the warrant? You're on mute.
Chris, you're on mute.
I have a problem. I have your probably can't. That's the button. I pressed 7 times. It wouldn't disconnect. I try to do that so I don't say anything, or a sigh or something. So the drop dead for the select board is a second. So your next meeting, hopefully
Okay.
we'll wrap stuff up. If something can't get there, then it can't get there, right? So it's a short warrant. You've already tackled a third of it. The next few articles, a couple of, again, they may not be a CPC article, they may fall off. And the capital budget doesn't want to support stuff that won't be there either. So, and again, I think you've already been briefed. I think the only ones that, the ones that'll probably take most of your time are going to be the zoning ones.
Okay.
You should probably prepare for at least a 45-minute conversation, at least 15 minutes per article, I'd say, maybe more, depending on what happens tonight.
Okay. And that is, I'll touch base with Meg, just to let her know what's coming up there, because she's the liaison for planning board and zoning. So, okay, so are we all set with special town warrant articles then? For this evening?
For this evening, you've heard them all. You voted on the ones you can vote. So, you'll vote, you'll get the land purchase and that stuff officially next time. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions, Fran?
Yeah, on that Article 11, for the lighting for the ball fields. Who's going to pay for the lighting?
Well,
I mean, they're donating the fixtures, but who's going to pay the electric bills?
there's still conversations that we had about all of that article. And, you know, I will have a little bit better guidance for you, I think, at the next meeting about that. So, and again, right now it's supposed to be structured just as a resolution. It doesn't have any binding authority to it.
Okay.
So whether, you know, that I don't know that there have been any sense of the meeting resolution since I've been here. They may have been in the past. So whether or not the board needs to vote to take a position on it is up to you. I mean, it normally only take positions on things that actually have, that are going to, you know, either spend money or not spend money, or, you know, pass a bylaw or not pass a bylaw. In this case, it's really, it's supposed to be structured just as a sense of the meeting. We urge the select board to do something. It doesn't actually direct anybody to do anything because town meeting can't make
Okay, thank you.
That's the gift. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just answered my question, because at this point, we're not authorizing anything. We're just listening to them. But I want to be sure that if they want the lights, that whoever wants lights needs to pay for them as well.
Okay. Moving on then, are there any liaison reports?
No.
Okay, I did listen in on the CPC meeting with Town Hall, and that was interesting and a great presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, that CPC was more than a majority positive. It wasn't unanimous, but it was a positive conversation, so that's good. And that is they're basically just setting the stage, I think, for the spring, just to kind of see where people are at on that committee. Nothing too much going on the school committee at this point. The superintendent goals were in the last meeting, and the last school facilities meeting, they talked about the lunch and air handlers. So nothing, it is important, but no buildings. So
Is there any update on the contract negotiation, teacher contract negotiation? Is there anything been made public about that?
not to my knowledge. Jean, do you know?
I don't know, but I don't imagine that it would be made public for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
And out of curiosity, what was the number that CPC has a presentation on about funding for the town, it's the historical town hall portion, I assume, of the town hall
Correct. And I'm
renovation project?
trying to remember, Chris or Dawn, do you, I don't remember off the top of my head. It was probably in the $5 or $6 million range, I would guess. That's approximately what it was before.
I believe Patrick, the ask will be something about, they haven't gotten their cost estimates. They're coming in December. I think they'll probably be looking for about what they did last time, somewhere around $4 million, which is what
Okay.
the, and I say this every time, but the largest CPC project to my knowledge in the state of Massachusetts was Needham's Town Hall. So that renovated their entire historic building, and they built an addition on the back in the parking lot. So much bigger building than ours, but I think I spent $14 million.
One more question, Mary.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night is the Alternative Energy Committee meeting, and I will have a report in 2 weeks about that, but they've got a very, very ambitious program and schedule, so it should be pretty interesting what they've got up their sleeves. They've been working hard, and they've got some really interesting things going.
That's awesome. And anything going on with the Harbor Committee, Fran?
No, they're not meeting now until December.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that front, there's actually some interesting legal development with regard to harbor plans. I don't know, Chris might know more about this. I'm supposed to attend a Boston Bar Association training about it. There was some legal decision that really puts into jeopardy all kinds of harbor plans in Mass. I'm going to find out more about it on I guess tomorrow, actually. So.
Awesome.
My only harbor update would be, if you haven't seen it already, the town won an $801,000 grant from the Seaport Economic Council to rebuild the Parker Avenue boat launch ramp.
Yay.
So that's actually going to bid, and hopefully construction will start this fall. So it's
The engineers were down there this last week surveying the whole place, so that was very encouraging to see.
in fact, the engineers were in town hall this week too, poking holes in the building to see what actually was behind the walls.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good sign too, though. I never know what they're gonna find.
or not.
Actually,
All right.
they found a 1901 program. It's like behind the wall from a ballroom dance that is in my office now. It's a little thing, maybe like this big.
That's
That's
fabulous.
neat.
So I don't know if it's, I mean, it's still, you can still read it. It's not in the greatest of shape, but it was some kind of ballroom dance from 1901. It's kind of,
Oh, you got to go give that to the Historical Society. Any other discussion? All right. So it seems that some of you did not get the minutes. Is that correct? To take a look at?
We can take a look at it.
All right. Let's see, Patrick, let's see.
I sent them to you and Rob, and then you sent them to the whole committee.
Yeah, let me see. Hold on. All right, Chris, if I send this to you, can you put it up? Oh, that's not it. Never mind.
Yeah,
The ones I did.
it's gotta be a two-stepper, but yes, I should be able to do it.
There we go.
No, that I didn't find it.
I have it.
Oh, okay. Jean, do you mind sending it to Chris, or he can,
Sure.
Chris can give you screen share?
I can just do a screen share. Gene.
Well, I've got it on my phone, so,
I just sent it to Chris.
oh, okay, good.
Town email address.
I accidentally hit the.
Yeah.
I accidentally hit the freaking temperature, and this big thing is blocking my screen with Google's version of the weather. All right, I have it.
Anybody here tonight who didn't get it?
Jeez.
So I'm juggling two different email boxes here to make this work.
And if it does not, we can approve them at the next meeting too. It's not the end of the world.
And it's
Mary,
okay.
does anybody here that's right now with us who did not get the minutes? Jean, did you get it?
think
I have them
everyone-
in, I have them in my
Okay,
town email.
I have them.
Did you get them?
Yeah, I wrote them.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's right.
Yeah, Patrick.
So. There you go.
See them now?
Yep.
Using the excellent template from prior meetings.
Hey, it's if it works. So whenever anyone is ready, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move that we approve the minutes from the meeting of September 29th as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we just discuss something quickly?
Of course.
The next two meetings were not noted in the minutes. So could we do them as amended to add tonight's meeting date and the next meeting date at the bottom?
In other words, add after October 13, add October 27.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so we
Well-
still have,
So if we approve them that way as amended, I will make that change. And then who should I send them to?
I think I sent you an email a few last week, Patrick, but I'll reissue. It goes to Beth Anderson in Town
Ah.
Hall.
Right, okay, right.
And
And I'm
you
also going to delete an extra period I see at the end of paragraph 1.
I hope you do. And just make sure it's in a PDF before you send it along to her.
Sure.
So we have a motion on the floor in a second. Roll call vote, Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy,
Aye, as amended.
Mark Magi,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick is an aye. Any topics not reasonably anticipated?
No.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Me? So moved.
Seconded.
Second?
Time for bedtime.
And let's just let Rob know I came in on budget and under time, okay?
Okay.
All right, roll call vote, please. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy,
Aye.
Mark Magi,
Aye.
and Mary McGoldrick is an aye. Thank you, guys, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks it
Thank
is.
you.
Good job, Mary.
Yeah,
Thanks very
right.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Thanks, Chris.